we're going to talk about chronic pelvic pain now. So Beth, can you tell me a little bit about chronic pelvic pain, what it is, how it manifests?
So chronic pain is any pain that's been present for longer than 3 months. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of both men and women who can suffer with chronic pain conditions, and specifically around the pelvis. This refers to any pain between the belly and the buttocks. And it, as I said, there's a number of things that can cause that. Typically we might think about IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is a common condition for women, endometriosis, adenomyosis, vulvodynia is another one, which is pain specifically more around the vulval region, vaginismus, which is associated with sexual function. There's pudendal neuralgia, which is a chronic nerve pain of the pudendal nerve, and that's just to name but a few. But there's a lot of crossover between the pain, but also it can manifest with various bladder and bowel dysfunction as well, and it can affect the whole pelvic area. Historically, chronic pelvic pain is very poorly understood. There's been a limited amount of research, especially done on women, and there's been a poor understanding, and hence what that's meant is there's no clear pathway for assessment, diagnosis and treatment for a lot of these conditions. We're gradually getting much better at this. We actually know that 10% of the female population will suffer from endometriosis, and there's a lot more evidence going into that, research going into that now. So we are better able to help manage these conditions, and physio is one of the ways of doing that.
Perfect. So essentially there's no magic wand, but there's a number of strategies that we can try through physio. Are you able to elaborate on this?
Yeah, so it will depend. Each person's an individual, and it depends on your own personal circumstances. For instance, whether your bladder function is affected, or your bowel function, or if it's predominantly the pain that's the main issue. So if for the bladder, things like bladder training can be helpful, and we've got some other videos around that, and tips for the bladder, and also with the bowel, tips for the bowel and keeping your bowel healthy and happy as well. If they also interact with one another a lot, so if you have problems with your bowel, that can have a knock-on effect on your bladder, and vice versa. So if you tend to suffer from persistent pelvic pain, then quite commonly at least one or more of those systems is affected. What we also tend to see is that the pelvic floor, so that's those muscles that wrap around both your front and your back passage, sit at the floor of your pelvis, beneath your pelvic organs, can over time become quite sensitized, and we refer to it as being quite overactive. So that means that it loses its kind of natural ability to relax when it otherwise would, and we often then see that can drive this pain forward. So although it may not have been the initial cause of the pain, it can become quite a problem, and that's also the case for something like pain with sexual function as well, both for men and women. So there are also some exercises we can do, pelvic floor down training, and diaphragmatic breathing, which we also have talked about in previous videos, but there are other techniques to think about. Anything that we can do to calm our nervous system, calm our central nervous system down, and sort of retrain that. So things that you enjoy, that you find relaxing, the use of those sorts of things. Mindfulness, there's a number of apps, including things like Headspace and Calm, which go through guided meditations, which can be really helpful for those sorts of things.
Perfect. And I've heard about dilators. When would those be useful?
So yeah, dilators can be used both vaginally and anally. If we think about use vaginally. They can be useful, especially for women who are struggling with sexual function and get a lot of pain from that. And they are a set of tools, basically, that we grade from starting small to larger, and you use them by placing them into your vagina for a period of time, and it applies a sort of sustained stretch to the tissues to help with desensitization and relaxing those tissues, and gradually it's a sort of graded exposure, and over time you can go back to the smallest size each time, but then gradually build up the duration of time you use them, and that can be really helpful, particularly for return to sexual function. Some are available on prescription via the NHS, but there are also a number of others that are available, which tend to be silicone, and they can be really helpful.
Perfect. So physiotherapy can help with sort of sexual dysfunction as well?
Yeah, absolutely.